In the late 1930s, the Soviet tank industry was in a very interesting place, as there were numerous tank designs competing for the spot of the perfect heavy tank. In the end, though, after thorough testing, countless land battleships were swept aside to give way to the one and only Kliment Voroshilov tank, or simply KV. This vehicle was a progenitor of the whole series of tanks that played a major part in World War II, and this video is all about those armor-clad monsters. The original KV has around 70 to 75 millimeters of armor all around. Not every opponent can pierce that even at a straight angle, and if you're angling, then it gets even more difficult. All in all, if this KV fights enemies that share the same BR, its armor plates just bounce shots off left and right. Furthermore, a 600 horsepower engine provides good mobility, at least for a heavy tank. In fact, the KV can get to many positions faster than the medium PZ-4. The main problem of the KV-1 is in its firepower department. It's armed with a 76mm L11 cannon, which it inherited from the SMK. Your main shell, an APH-EBC with the MD5 fuse, can pierce only 78mm of armor. Granted, if it actually achieves penetration, it'll probably knock the enemy out, but you have to get through that armor first. That's why later versions of the KV received new weapons before anything else. For instance, the KV-1E was fitted with a new cannon of the same caliber and gained access to the BR-350B APH-EBC round, which can penetrate up to 86mm of steel. This was a major upgrade. As a result, the KV-1E has significantly better chances of dealing damage to enemy armor. And that's without mentioning that the tank has the fastest firing gun among all KV variants. The main difference between the KV-1E and the original model, though, was that the vehicle was up-armored with bolted applique armor on the front and sides of the hull and turret. The tank was already a pretty tough nut to crack, but those additional 25 to 30 millimeters of armor made it the best protected vehicle at its BR, at the expense of some mobility, of course. The next major firepower upgrade came in the form of the ZIS-5 cannon. When fired from this gun, regular APH-EBC shells could pierce up to 94mm of armor, and it became possible to penetrate up to 125mm with APCRs. A new armament wasn't the only change, though. This version of the KV-1 also received a new armor arrangement. It had only 90mm of armor around the turret, and the only applique armor that remained was at the front of the hull and around the turret ring. Less armor means less weight, and this variant was almost as mobile as the original model. But after the start of World War II, there were more and more guns on the battlefield that were an actual threat to the Soviet armored beast. Because of that, in the summer of 1942, the Soviets decided to make a hard pivot to increasing mobility on the next model. The new vehicle was designated the KV-1S, with S standing for Skorotsnoy, meaning it was a high-speed version. By dropping almost all additional armor plates, engineers managed to shed almost 4 tons of weight, making the tank significantly more mobile, with its max speed jumping from 34 km per hour to 45 km per hour. Naturally, such extreme measures made the tank considerably more vulnerable. The sides of the KV-1S can't withstand hits even from a short-barreled 50mm gun. Nevertheless, this version of the KV is still very effective as a fast, heavy tank that can easily keep up with medium tanks on its team. With the KV-2, Soviet engineers went in the opposite direction and made them even heavier. When breaching the Mannerheim line, Soviet tankers noted that the 76mm cannon was not powerful enough to destroy fortified emplacements. Engineers found a rather elegant solution to the problem, outfitting the tank with a 152mm M10T howitzer, mounted in a special turret and operated by 2 loaders. Keep in mind that even with 2 people on the task, it takes the crew almost 33 seconds to reload this massive gun. Furthermore, the turret was so heavy that its incorporation resulted in a significantly slower traverse time. On the other hand, the new gun hit like a truck. There are 2 variants of this monstrosity in War Thunder, built in 1939 and 1940 respectively, and also a captured version in the German tech tree. After that, as an experiment, engineers decided to use the KV-2 platform to test a new gun with increased power, the ZIS-6 cannon. This 107mm cannon could, at least in theory, pierce the defenses of any tank produced before 1941, but it never made it into actual production. When the war started, all projects involving the cannon were effectively closed, but in the game, this prototype tank performs exactly as advertised. It's fully capable of sending a German Panther back to the hangar with just a single shot. Even if the target survives your first attack, it won't take you long to finish the job. A 17-second reload is pretty darn good for a gun of this caliber. Keep in mind, though, that this KV has a higher BR, and most of the opponents you face can easily pen you right from the front. The KV-85 was a logical evolution of the KV-1S. The new vehicle used the same hull, but the turret was enlarged to house a new 85mm D5T cannon. Armor on the turret was 100mm thick all around, but two bulges right below the turret became the tank's new primary weak point, with just 40mm of armor there. Changes to the design increased the weight of the vehicle up to 46 tons, but it was a small sacrifice to make for such a powerful new armament, which could also use the legendary BR-365A APH EBC round. But the 85mm D5T wasn't even the most powerful gun that was placed in that turret. That honor goes to the 122mm D25T that was fitted into the tank, aptly named KV-122. This tank plays like a true glass cannon. With a penetration rate of 205mm, its shells can go right through some of your opponents, but the vehicle is extremely vulnerable to enemy fire. Moreover, the slow reload of its gun forces the KV-122 to change its position after each shot, but in many cases, it's easier said than done, as the vehicle's engine lost 80 horsepower compared to the previous model. The main flaw of both tanks with this turret, though, is that they have really poor gun depression, of -3 degrees. Finally, the most advanced vehicle of the series is the KV-220, which doesn't have many of the flaws that plagued its predecessors. Its all-around armor was increased to 100mm, but all that additional weight was not a problem, due to a new engine outputting 850 horsepower. The tank was armed with an 85mm F-30 cannon, which boasted the same penetration rate as the D5T. All in all, the KV-220 feels like a glorious return to the times of the early models. It's highly mobile, well-protected, and heavily armed. An experienced tanker using one of those can easily break through several lines of enemy defenses without giving their opponents even a chance to retaliate. As tanks of the KV series were heavily involved in many fights of the Second World War and the Winter War, some of them were captured by the enemy. For instance, Finns captured a few different KVs, including a KV-1 with applique armor. You can find it in the German tech tree as the KW-1B. The same tech tree also has a KV-2, fitted with a German commander's cupola offering a better view over the battlefield. But the most interesting trophy variant of the tanks of this series is probably the KW-1C. It's armed with a German 75mm cannon with a long barrel. This gun has good ballistics, a good fire rate, and powerful APCBC shells that can pierce up to 145mm of armor. Keep in mind, though, that even this upgunned KV can run into quite a few tough opponents, like the American Jumbo or the Soviet IS. In the case of the former, aim at their machine gun port, and the latter can be defeated with a shot through their lower glacis. The KV family of tanks consists of many different designs, from fast vehicles to bunker busters. If you want to explore everything that tank battles have to offer, this series of tanks might just be the perfect choice. And if you've already tried some KVs, which one is your favorite? Tell us in the comments below.